Well, Prepper. Looks like we were right. It's hit the fan. So let's dive in and talk about it.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Folks, World War III is now here. In case you missed it, in case you were asleep, in case you were busy, in case you had other things that were on your mind, it's here. Once again, by announcing the arrival of something the way we did with SHTF back in March of 2020, we knew it was here because of the way things were heading, because of the preponderance of activities and evidence supporting the facts. Way back then, folks, we said, hey, look, supply lines are going to be disrupted because when they did all the shutdowns, shutdown of business, shutdown of transportation, shutdown of energy, shutdown of everything, it was going to create shortages. Of course, I always think things are going to happen a lot faster than they do, but they happen nonetheless. We're now seeing the full-on effect, huge inflation, product unavailability, promise of more product unavailability, not to mention the riots, protests, and conflicts that come about as a result of these shortages, not to mention the political posturing and positioning that occurs as a result of all the damage that's done by poor political decisions. And now, folks, politics is corporate. Corporations are now pushing for social governance. What that means is their governance of you and me, as well as controlling the politicians. They could never claim, folks, that they run the country until now, when they nakedly come out and say social governance. Well, who is social? Social is social media. Who owns social media? Mainstream media, big tech companies, and they're all good buddies with the mega corporations and banks. Now, to have true SHTF, to cover up all the errors and mistakes, all the omissions and lies, you need a boogeyman. You need a bad guy. You need a war. They completely jacked up the world in the 1920s, folks. We had a huge economic run-up, the roaring 20s. And then they had the whoops moment, the oh my gosh, I guess we messed up moment, the big crash and the following Great Depression. And they had to turn someone into the boogeyman. So they antagonized the living shit out of, yes, none other than Hitler. They antagonized him and antagonized him and antagonized him. And yeah, he was doing some awful things already. Awful things, folks. Horrific things. And so they pissed him off until he invaded Poland. Now, I'm not apologizing for Hitler in the least, not 1%, but he was antagonized into taking some of the first actions in World War II. World War II. Well, we have World War III right now. They've gotten to it. They've screwed everything up. We had our roaring whatevers the last few decades, roaring this and roaring that, and some pullbacks and some economic problems and some financial issues and some monetary issues, but they were roaring nonetheless because of, well, all of their antics, their money printing, their games, playing with interest rates, their toolbox. They've been playing with their tools, haven't they? Well, they screwed it all up, so they had to hide their mistakes. Along comes Cerveza-Bug. But who can be the boogeyman? Who's the bad guy? Well, he's an outsider. He's not part of the World Economic Forum. Officially kicked out of that. He's not part of the world banking system. Never allowed Western banking to dominate and control the Russian currency. So they sanctioned him. They punished him. Still, he wouldn't go away. Putin and Russia, folks. Putin and Russia. He's the bad guy. So they antagonized him and antagonized him and antagonized him with Ukraine, with their puppet in Ukraine, Zelensky, Voldemort. So the invasion occurred, and now they're supporting more war efforts. We've had our collapse, we've had our boogeyman, and now we have World War III. Now, it's not nuclear, and it's not the whole world, not yet, right? There are regional conflicts just waiting to happen. Of course, the next one that we're all watching and waiting for the dime to drop on is China and Taiwan. They've been calling for it for years and years. Folks, the same way they were calling for war in Europe well before Poland was invaded by Nazi Germany. In World War I, before World War I, there was nothing but talk of war between Western Europe and Eastern Europe, the Prussian Empire, and then the Ottoman Empire. Okay, it was known long ahead of time that war was inevitable, and the killing of a third-rate aristocrat is what is being credited with starting the war. Right? Wouldn't you say Voldemort Zelensky is a third-rate nobody leader? Well, I would. So Europe has been punishing Russia for defending its interests. And we've covered exactly what Ukraine is and what it's being used for, right? And Russia went in there to secure the issues just as they did in 2014. Except now it's it's time to cover our tracks, I guess. All these bad guys in the West. So we've been punishing Russia, sanctioning Russia, or at least attempting to. They've been kicking out Russian diplomats out of European countries, and they just kicked a shit pile more out as punishment, folks. This is how war starts, when diplomacy fails, right? When corruption is exposed. Russia's foreign ministry announced its side, right? A tit-for-tat move with 34 employees of the French have been kicked out of Russia. They got 2 weeks to get the hell out. Oh, by the way, yeah, Macron, President Emmanuel Macron of France, right? He has been on the phone several times with Putin. Always talking about, let's end the war, let's be diplomatic, let's stop this. Really, Macron? He says, right, in the next breath here, that he's going to be shipping a lot of weapons into Ukraine to help them fight the Russians. Interesting, folks, is it not? How can you claim to want peace while continuing to fund the fight? The only way to have peace is to surrender. So which side surrenders? Apparently both sides still feel there's fighting to be done. And so fight they will. Right? The media have played games with us. They make it sound like the war is being won by Ukraine and its masters, the UK, US, NATO, France, etc. While they call for peace, they work for more conflict, though. This is a familiar game. World War I, World War II, it's a familiar game. And the consequences of these games is never good for us. Right? What's it going to take? Who needs to be killed? What false flag event happens? What sneak attack occurs? We had the Gulf of Tonkin incident, a false flag, a lie, never happened, used as the excuse to increase the war effort into Vietnam. Right? Again, Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated by the Black Hand, a secret mob society. Right? World War II was kicked off with Pearl Harbor. Actually, it was already going in the European theater. But yeah, it became the Pacific theater with that one. We have called for, folks, a 10-year minimum SHTF period where hardship and economic depression will be horrible. And this war that could kick off. Does anyone doubt that? Can anyone see a silver lining, a way out, and into prosperity again and peace in less than 5 years? Right? It would take incredible political bravery and brilliance. We don't have that in our country, in Washington. right? Mere words won't work like Barack's bullshit shovel-ready economic jobs program and talk of peace when all they do is push for war and invasion. Under Obama, a lot more war and a lot more invasion. Right? It's going to take real industry, real productivity to turn this ship around. Not role playing, not video gaming, not social media hyperbole. It's going to take real action. And we don't have that leadership. So I say we're heading into World War III because we're replaying an old game. We have some new technology, but it's the same old game. It's the blame game. It's the sneak attack game. It's the BS game. It's war. And it never benefits us. It's here now. It's started. We're in the very early stages. There is violence. There are tanks rolling, planes flying, helicopters helicoptering. There's troops shooting. People being captured and put in prisoner of war camps. It's all happening right now. It's undeniable. It's just how big will it get? Or will World War III be a Cold War? Will it go cold? And if it does, folks, it's somewhat better than a really hot war, but it still doesn't bode well for us. It's still SHTF. Are you ready? Go to thepreparedmind.club and get prepared. Get what you need there at thepreparedmind.club. And thank you, everyone, for guerrilla funding us through Patreon. We need you on Patreon, right? Because we're being attacked in the social media war. That's right. You and I are being attacked. We're fighting there. Just as assuredly, folks, as fighting continues in every aspect of our lives and all around the world. Be thankful we have food and water, that we have good shelter, that we have our own means of self-defense, the Second Amendment, still, that we have some semblance of law and order in this country. But the Democrats are trying to destroy that, and we know it, and we see it. Will, folks, World War III actually not be war between countries? But think of it this way. Will World War III be a war in which countries all have civil wars within them, while fighting is also done in other places? Our country is now turned on itself. Corporations have engaged in this political fighting. Extremists have engaged in their terrorism. And what do we want? Well, peace, stability, law and order. That's being deprived of us while they attack us and blame us for the very things that they are committing. World War III, folks, could be civil wars around the world where the people fight back against evil and tyranny coming from within their own countries. Right? Where leaders like Boris Johnson, semi-embarrassed, has to give up his power. Emmanuel Macron, a lying scumbag. Scholz in Germany, a fool on a fool's errand. Voldemort Zelensky, tremendous liar. His country hates him, folks. Oh, I'm sure he has supporters. But now that you can't be a political dissident, you can be jailed, thrown in prison, executed on the spot, have your property stolen from you in Ukraine. Yeah, who's going to stand up and say Zelensky's wrong? Incredible, is it not? That was a Hitler-esque, Stalin-esque move to make political opposition of a tyrant a crime. King George would be proud of Zelensky. King George would be proud of Macron. King George of England would be proud, folks, of what has been created inside the United States of America. An alliance between corporations, the bureaucracy, and elected officials in an effort to cancel our Constitution. Get prepared, folks. It's no joke. World War III is starting. It's just what final form and shape. That's why you need all things: food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. And we need to stay here, folks, every single day, talking to one another and sharing ideas and concepts so we don't fall behind and we don't get blindsided. Things are hard enough out there without being blindsided through ignorance. Right? And it is for ignorance that our people are destroyed. Right? Don't be ignorant. Be informed. Be a prepper. Godspeed. Chance favors the prepared mind. And Semper Fi.